Hey, it's the podcast guy.
Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago. And what a moment to enjoy for the fans of this Surrey side. They've had their moments before, but never one like this. But the whistle goes down. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United from the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. Hopefully it has been a tech disaster so far this evening and we're roughly 25 minutes behind the start time. But we are started in association with Lucky Star Gin. As always, I'm your host Mike, and with me on today's panel is Andy. Hello Andy, how are you?
The Lone Wolf, yeah.
Yes. We're going to be covering the away disappointment, but at Crewe this time. So there's a bit of variety. We're at Crewe. And we're going to look forward-ish to the trip to Forest Green on Saturday. As always, engagement is important. Please do the likes, shares, retweets, etc., etc. I really do appreciate all of them. I'm even loving getting all the messages from opposition fans telling me that we're going down because I hadn't worked it out yet. But we're going to dive right in. Andy, last time we saw you was back in November, I wrote down, but I think we did do a big group therapy session, and I think you were involved in that as well. So, but how have you been since the whole time, November, December, January?
as well as to be expected. Football aside, everything's fine.
Everything's lovely and hunky-dory, absolutely. Well, last time I said this, there wasn't much in club news. It's because I hadn't really paid attention. So there might be stuff in club news, but I haven't written anything down other than a reminder of the coach travel for a second coach. No, there is a second coach going to Forest Green, so we could bring a few people, and it's 25 quid, which seems pretty good value, and you get a raffle for a Ross Lafayette shirt as well. I don't know where they dug that from, but they found it down the back of one sofa. But yeah, so do support the team. Obviously, I'm saying that with very, 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 what's the word? Hypocritical with I don't travel. But if you are willing to travel, please do so. So we're going to jump in. Oh, actually, no, there was one more update. The shirt sales for the, I'm not going to lie, gorgeous aubergine shirt. It was really, really nice, and not just because Claire was modelling it. It was a very nice shirt, and I think sales are about, I think I was told about up to 180 now, and so they're going really, really well. And obviously that's the shirt we're wearing against Altrincham, Accrington Stanley even, and it's all to sort of push the association with Royal Marsden. So if you haven't bought one yet, please do so. They are nice, and there is a slight tiny mention it might become a second or third kit at some point, so get in early. So Andy, I used your words last week and said that the Tranmere match was the first match that we had kind of got away with one, and Grimsby match even. We didn't get away with one at Tranmere.
No.
After that, and really, we did get out of jail there. Did you kind of expect the team to be a bit fired up, coming out of the blocks, going, right, let's take full advantage of this? And what were you expecting at Crewe?
To be honest, I got what I expected. In all of the Steve Morrison games in charge, it was a typical game. Positives, we did play better than we did against Grimsby, but that wouldn't have been that difficult. But it's the same thing. It's defence looks weak. Midfield are not providing enough chances for a lone striker. You know, it's kind of the same story time after time. So I wasn't going there expecting much. I was going there hoping for everything, as we always do. But yeah, it kind of turned out exactly how people could predict, really.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few people. Good, you know what? Let's not be around the bush. A few people like me clutching at straws with Crewe's recent form. They're up there in the playoffs, but they sort of had a little wobble. But their wobble was basically our entire season. And he did mix up the lineup a bit. We had Harry come back in. Omar started. See, I said Omar, not Omari, like I kept saying last week.
Good work.
And Easty on the bench. So were you a bit surprised at the lineup, or again, what were you expecting with one up front?
With Morrison, it's a bit difficult to tell, actually. I mean, people are saying, he shouldn't be chopping and changing the team all the time, but actually, maybe he should. Maybe he should be using the best squad he can. So no, I was pleased to see Harry back. A little bit surprised that Harry started instead of Eastley. But then also, bear in mind, it was Saturday, and Eastley still is coming back. Eastley's not the player he was before he got injured.
No.
So I think there's quite a bit of player management happening there, which is completely understandable as well. So that didn't necessarily surprise me. It's obvious that he likes the fullbacks of Nino and Ryan. They seem to be consistent. The defence also seems to be consistent. Although obviously Ben Goodliff's injured, so no surprise there. But it's kind of like the midfield is always the interesting one. It's how he lines it up, how he does that. I think, to be fair, actually, Craig Clay has improved as a player since Steve Morris has come in. And I didn't think he had a particularly bad game. I don't think anyone had a particularly awful game, to be honest. But again, that's exactly what's happened. It's not the idea of like blaming one player is complete madness. I mean, how many times did we hear, for example, that literally everything was Dean Bizanis' fault? We lost against Tranmere. Did Bizanis play any other teams? No. So maybe the problem is slightly bigger than just one player. But again, it did seem like the midfield were kind of a little bit lost at sea. There really wasn't a huge amount of service. I mean, Lakin had a decent game, but actually compared to some of his other performances, he was a bit on the quiet side.
Yeah.
So, and he's a real playmaker for us. By far, I would say probably the best signing we've made under Morrison. But yeah, no real surprises. There's literally only so much we can do with the players we've got.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly something with McKenna, because of Duke McKenna, because when he comes on, people are kind of like, oh, this is an exciting player. But invariably, he doesn't play a full match. He certainly doesn't start 2 in a row. So there's obviously some agreement somewhere that they're going to manage him. And rightly so, because obviously, yes, short term, you want the best you can do. But long term, it might benefit us to have a better relationship with clubs who know we're going to look after their players. So you mentioned Craig Clace.
I'll say which one.
Yeah. And I think it was him in the first 20 seconds where he did that. Again, all players do it, so I'm not picking on Craig. But he did that thing where the ball was up and he had no chance of winning it. And he did that bending forward. So when their player landed, it kind of flipped over. And you see it a lot and you do forget that's actually really dangerous. And the guy landed really badly. And luckily, he obviously had to come off, but he seems like he's okay. But it was 20, 30 seconds after the start. It was a long stoppage. That kind of set the tone for the evening. Did you see it as quite a physical game, or did you see it as the referee was
it was a bit of a bitty game. I mean, the fact that there was a long delay at the start, knocked quite a few of us because we'd already heard the news that the M6 was closed on the way home, so our journey was going to be longer. And it was like, another 5 minutes. I mean, come on. I think that tackle itself was quite innocent. Obviously, their player had to go off. He seems to be okay. I was standing next to Nick, and I just said to him, yeah, you wait. This substitute's going to come on and score for him. Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Shut up. And but it was a little bit physical. It wasn't. I've seen worse games. It just think there seemed to be. I'd say probably from both sides a bit of diving, a bit of pushing, a bit of shirt pulling. It's the usual stuff. There was nothing there that stood out as being particularly physical in that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those. Again, this isn't to blame the ref at all, but it's one of those that if the ref stamps on these things within the first 5-6 minutes, the players would just kind of realise they have to get on with it. But did you know the ref? That was his first EFL game. Was it? We've had a few
and
of
I
them.
think the players knew that, so I think they were trying every trick on that one.
They're professional football players, and they're all naughty school kids just trying to get away with what they can all the time. I mean, you mentioned Dino, and his replacement, Steve Arnold, has obviously come in, and if you're doing that in training, how on earth have you not been playing every match? Obviously, there's an injury there as well. But he sort of had a few early saves. And it was involved quite a lot. But I think he did. I think he sort of spilled across and gave them a bit of a chance early on as well. It's unlike him, to be fair. But he then had a bit of a Red Ross moment where he come charging out and what was that German player? Was it the German or the Austrian player? Just absolutely clattered the striker.
Luckily their player didn't lose 5 teeth. Broke 3 vertebrae, was knocked unconscious. When he came out, I just had images of Brad House at Rochdale last season. I was thinking, but I don't think he actually made contact with the player. Brad House just took that player out. Steve Arnold didn't. He basically got the ball. So, I think it was probably the right decision. But it was a little bit of rush of blood to the head. It really was.
But we got away with it. I mean, the last time we had a keeper of rush of blood to the head was when Dino came out and we ended up giving a penalty away to Doncaster. So we kind of got away with that. It was just outside the penalty area. So I think it wouldn't have been a penalty, but could have been a red. And then we would have had Matt, I think, on the bench.
Yes.
Making his debut. But they had a bit of pressure. We kind of started to get back into the game. You wouldn't know that our manager's a striker with the fact, I think we had something like 8 or 9 shots on target, and 8 or 9 shots and only 1 on target. There was a couple players where I felt that they were surprised to find themselves with such a good chance. Like Josh Coley just before half time had a really kind of chance, thinking, right, someone's going to nick this ball. Someone's going to nick the ball. Someone's going to nick the ball. Shit, I've got to shoot. Did it feel like that to you guys, or were you just getting frustrated?
I would say that's a really good summary. It's kind of like, oh, the ball's falling for us. I've forgotten what to do. It's like, we could have done better with the few chances that we did actually have. I mean, there was a nice fizzler. I mean, it went straight to their keeper from. I think it was Nino on the left.
Good one.
And that was. I mean, that had a really good bit of weight on. But I mean, a lot of them they were high, they were wide, and again, there's a pattern there. Yeah, it's happened so many times. We're not the only side to do it. Other teams have done it to us, and they've shot high and wide. But it's really obvious that we're really struggling to know where the goal is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we kind of made it to half time, 0-0. Fairly even, and I don't think you probably could have argued with the draw at that point. Would have expected.
I would say we shaded the first half.
Which
I'd say overall we were the better team in the first half. Yeah,
fair enough.
We certainly controlled the game more. We might not have had the shots, but we didn't look uncomfortable.
No, and that was a bit of a surprise. So Crewe would seem to be like, well, okay, they've done well, but they're there for the taking. We could do this. But then coming out second half, we again didn't have that, right, we're going for the jugular here, we're going for it. Which, in our position, you kind of be like, you can almost accept, okay, we got hit on the break, but we did have to go for it. But we're getting hit without going for it. but Steve kept us in it again. An early substitution, would that surprise you? I know what Steve said afterwards about Harry being ill, but I think it was only like 6-7 minutes into the second half.
Yeah. I mean, I always find it funny when they make a substitution at that point. It's why not make it just at half time? It doesn't.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly. You might know this better than me about do half-time substitutions count to the number of times you can do substitutions or something like that? It doesn't, does it? So
no, they're a freebie. So you can do free opportunities during the game, but then the half-time doesn't count.
Yeah, so that didn't make any sense to me. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't know what Steve Morrison is thinking, and the problem is nobody knows what Steve Morrison is thinking. So
yeah, we will come on to that.
Yes.
But I mean, he said afterwards that Harry had been ill all week, and he only kind of joined in the training the day before. And he did say he was thinking of doing it at half time, but Harry said he was okay.
Yeah.
And again, at that, I'm like, but Steve, you're a player. You've played. You know what players are like. Like school kids. We said it earlier. You should have just said, no, the plan is this. But I mean, Harry's obviously an important player for us. But Duke came on, and you mentioned Nino's shot. I think Duke had a couple of chances that went straight to the keeper as well. He does seem like a player that one of those. Strangely, I don't think he's had many assists, so he's definitely not had a goal. But he is one of those players that do get you standing on the tippy toes, trying to see what is he doing and how is he playing. Do you enjoy watching him?
Yeah, I mean both of us. Nino is very technically gifted. Some of the stuff he does on that pitch, you can see he's not a League Two player, right?
Yeah.
But he's also quite naive. He's still got a lot to learn about the game. In 2 years' time, I can see Nino being a Premier League player. I really can. But he just needs to learn his craft.
Yeah.
Duke McKenna's more of a complete package, but again, I think he struggles to do 90 minutes. But I think they're both very good loan signings for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Again, these things I write them down, but I never put them in order. But Kizzy had the chance of the game, and again, one of those I think just absolutely wasn't expecting it to come across. So, I mean, what was your view of that? Was that the wrong end for you guys, or was that?
No, because Crewe's great because they actually put us right in the middle, so we get a really good view of Imagine sitting in the main stand at our place in a director's box. That's the kind of view we would get at Crewe.
Very nice.
So it's very good there. So no, saw that. Yeah, absolutely. But to be honest, with the way Joe Kesey's been playing this season, not surprised. Sounds harsh.
It's harsh.
He is all season. He's been nowhere near the player we know.
No, I mean,
nowhere close.
We all know I don't know an awful lot, but I have been saying almost since the start of the season, Kizzy just needs a little bit of a rest. Can someone stop getting injured? Let Kiz have a week or so off and let him have a rest. And the poor bloke, I think he's played every minute of every game.
Very much so. It was the same last season.
Yeah.
Last season he was he was a player that played the most minutes for us.
Yeah.
And he was at a much higher standard than he is this season.
Yeah. Well, he was involved at the other end. Uncharitable people have said he had all the time in the world, but it did seem to be one of those where he just couldn't get his feet sorted to clear the ball. I mean, could have almost fallen over and just fell on the ball. But what was your view on the goal? Not just his thing, but
no. I think, to be honest, the damage was done for that goal before Kizzy had got anywhere near the goal line. Kizzy and Omar, it was a 2-on-1. Neither of them got to that player. It was basically they gifted a goal. So I'm not going to blame Kizzy for not clearing it off the line. but I'm going to blame him and Omar for not defending as well as they could have done.
Fair enough.
And it was, I mean, it was a long ball that it was just basically a cut through pass. I mean, the ball that got passed to that guy was not that far in front of their 18-yard box.
Mm-hmm.
And it just cut straight through, saw the gap, saw the player. It was just one player. We had to, that goal was the perfect idea of the counter-attacks we failed to do at Tranmere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, more than Tranmere, a lot. I mean, we did have a few other chances, but there's not many games where we've managed to come back from being goal down. I think
we
Omar had a shot.
we basically fell apart after they scored. We were that was it. The game was lost at that point.
Yeah. So another single goal defeat, which is the story of Steve's reign. They're all very close games. We got one single goal win, lots of draws and loads of single goal defeats. I mean, how do we get over that? I mean, from our point of view, obviously, if we knew this, we'd be employed at football clubs. But from our point of view, how do we get over this? The
first thing is we learn how to keep a clean sheet. I mean, one goal difference is fine if we win 1-0, but we're not going to win 1-0 if we don't keep a clean sheet. And invariably, it's the other team that scores first. And we saw a deflation like we did at Tranmere, like we did at Crewe. It's the same story. Morecambe. Well, actually, Morecambe we didn't play that well. Grimsby should have been exactly the same, but we got lucky. We're going to keep a clean sheet, and Steve Morrison has failed to keep a clean sheet in any of his. How many games now? 14 games.
I think it is 14. Yes.
Yeah, I think 14. It's 14. Yeah, no clean sheets at all. Against some quite poor opposition as well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if the games are 4-3s like the Notts County one, that's the old Dossie Ardiles football. You're like, yeah, go on, go for it. We'll have exciting games of football. You don't mind those clean sheets, and if it goes one way or the other, but when it's constantly going against us, it's
but the problem is the Notts County game is an aberration.
Exactly.
Everything else is fitting the pattern. The only other game under Morrison, I think, where actually it was like, no, this was a really hard fought point, was Mansfield away.
Mm-hmm.
That was in difficult conditions, a decent result against a very, very good side. A side that will almost definitely be automatically promoted, if not win the league.
Yeah.
That was great, but some of the others have just been toilet.
Yeah. So
I mean, on the positive side though, we're not letting in 8 goals in a game. So
there's 8 games to go. So how do you sit on how this result impacts the relegation? Because obviously the other results went very badly for us on this one. So as opposed to the other day where we got away with one, we're like, whoa, we've actually closed the gap. This time it's like, oh, it's got worse for us. So where do you kind of sit with the probable?
My acceptance of our relegation happened at the final whistle against Colchester. If we had any chance, any realistic chance of doing this, we needed to beat Colchester, beat Grimsby, and beat Forest Green. We failed in the first 2. We're probably going to fail on Saturday, because they're the 3 teams closest to us. If you winning against them has such a big impact on where we could potentially be, because you're stopping other teams getting points. So when we didn't get that one against Colchester,
exactly.
Again, it was another quite flat performance. Then I've accepted it. Obviously I'd love to be proved wrong, as I always love to be proved wrong. But I can't see us. Bearing in mind, there's an obvious pattern now to how we're playing, and an obvious pattern to how games are going.
Yeah,
it's not bad luck. This is not bad luck. This is a broken team.
No.
Even with new blood in, it is a broken team, and the damage had been done way before Steve Morrison joined. And Steve hasn't had I'd say he's had the time, but I don't think he's necessarily had the ability to fix how broken it was. That's not necessarily a reflection on Steve as such. We don't know how broken it was.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember where I said this. I think it might have been a little group where I said that first season, whilst everyone goes on of how great it was and all the rest of it, that first season is probably the worst thing that could have happened to us for our Football League career, because it was so easy with the players that we had. It's like we only need a few tweaks here and there, and we've got a really good side. And then, we're not. We're all performing at 190%. Oh dear. So
my worrying point for me actually was where we extended the contracts of the defenders that Matt was picking week in, week out.
Mm-hmm.
Because already for me there was signs there of things cracking. And I was like, I actually think it was not necessarily in that first season. It wasn't necessarily us scoring that was the problem. In that first season, our defense was not actually as good as people think it was.
Yeah.
And he threw his lot in with those players that we had. I was thinking, no, if we want to stay here, we've got to improve. And then, kind of like when it came to March of the second season, you can see things happening. And then we had Colchester and Rochdale at the tail end of it. It's like, there are worrying signs here, and it just carried on.
Yeah. As I said, we'll come back to it. So Steve's reign, as you've kind of mentioned, he's inherited a lot of players. Obviously, he didn't really answer the question when I asked him about his style, what he wants to do. He just wants to win games. He hates losing. There was a lot of, shouting down is a bit unfair, but there was a lot of people, when I sort of said at the start of him coming in that his interviews was like, he does need to get people on side. He needs to have everyone support, because when things go bad, that's where people have got the buy-in. And it's kind of already started. I've already seen people say, get him out of the club. And I'm like, he's only been here 5 minutes. Why give the man a chance? But where do you kind of stand? I know Bruce will say that he hasn't had even a decent transfer window yet, because he came in and literally was juggling straight away. But where do you kind of stand?
It's going to be very interesting to see what business he does in the summer.
Yeah,
he does. I think he will need to build his own team. He kind of did that with Hornchurch very quickly, but of course it's easier to do at that level.
Yeah.
He will need to build his own team, and he will need to bring in players like any manager would, who respond to him. It's like, I don't think people realise sometimes that actually a great player is only great if there is the right manager to respond to. And somebody, go to someone like Brian Clough. Brian Clough was a bloody difficult person, but I think it was like John McGovern, his captain, basically said, would I go for a drink with him? No. Would I walk barefoot across the Sahara Desert with him? Yes. And that's, it's that kind of like that level of kind of respect and admiration. And I know it's a different era, but different players will play better for different teams based on the manager. And certainly some of the players we currently have may have played better for Matt Gray than they would do for Steve Morrison. As we've seen with other players, and I mean, again, Craig Clay's the first one that springs to mind. He's probably playing better under Steve Morrison than he did under Matt Gray. So, it's about having the right team around you. I think it's going to be interesting. He's the only one kind of those new managers that period between kind of December and February where all these new managers came in that didn't get a new manager bounce at all. Although to be honest, I think the Cowleys are having big issues. But if Colchester go down, they'll be in a lot more trouble than we will.
I mean, I did a while back when Matt was still with us, there was a Not the Top 20 podcast, and they specifically were looking at this manager bounce thing. and they had this statistician person, and he actually was just like, it's an absolute myth. The whole idea of a manager bounce is a myth. Is there might be like players giving a little bit more, but everything reverts to normal very, very quickly. Now, for us, that happened extremely quickly. But I mean, it's a difficult one because obviously a lot of us oldies would just support whoever's in the chair, and it's the club we support, the players we support. It's whoever's in the chair and whatever players are on the pitch. That's who we're supporting. But I think a lot of these players are quite lucky that they play for Sutton, not other clubs, because they would have been booed on many occasions from other clubs.
Yeah.
I know there was a bit of conversation about people getting annoyed that they get clapped off because they're like, why are we still clapping them off the pitch? But there's a lot of people who will say, well, I'll clap whatever. They've still tried. They're just not very good. So there's a lot there going on. I mean, I know you had a conversation about people saying that's it and walking away. I don't want to support anymore. And it goes back to where you said you accepted a while back. That's it. It's happening.
Yeah.
But I think the different people have got different stages of grief.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like some of the things on the form, some of the words used with the 24 points to play for brigade or the doom mongers, and it's like, we're just literally splitting it. Come on, guys, let's just accept that someone might be a little bit further down the line than you are. And Sarah did a great one earlier saying that for her mental health is about going to football. Doesn't actually matter what happens with the football. But other people will be like, actually, do you know what? I just can't watch it. So be nice to each other is what I'm saying, everyone. Just be
saying
nice.
that to the wrong person, aren't you?
Yeah. No, just be nice to everyone, not just to you. I'm saying to everyone, be nice. Moan at me, I don't care. So moving on, because that's the beauty of football, as Johnny says in his book. Another little plug for Johnny's book, everyone. Football is, there's always another game, another week, another season. We can move on very quickly.
Yeah.
How on earth do we pick the players up? Steve's interview was, he says he doesn't want to sound like a broken record, and then sounded like a broken record. Said, I've got to pick the players up. How on earth can you pick the players up? I mean,
that's why he's a manager. That is a massive skill of being a manager, is picking the players up. I don't know how to do it. When you've had this set of results, then what you've got to realise is actually you must be doing something that isn't working. Not necessarily the players. You try different things, we're getting the same result. Is it just the players? You try different players, you're getting the same result. So I don't know how you do it. I really don't. But then I'm not a football manager. And it's managers like that that really are good at picking the players up. I mean, to be fair, actually, Paul Doswell was quite good at that. It was very, very rare that we went on anything like a particularly bad run with Doswell. I know we were playing at lower levels and so forth, but even when we're in the National League, with arguably weaker technical players and fewer resources and you name it, it was never like that. It was very very positive. I think you got the feeling that he would put arms around certain players, sometimes a bit too much. He would sometimes protect certain players, probably in a detrimental way. Actually, playing players that are completely out of form week in, week out, and not basically saying, "Look, I need to rest you. You need to sit this one out." Okay, just really for your own, just to give you a chance to press your reset button. And I don't, for the impression I get with Steve Morrison, which I mean could be completely wrong, I don't get the feeling he's that sort of manager. So I don't know what methods. I mean, he's obviously very much into his psychology, and if he's probably better skilled and knows the various things with the support people he's got in to do that, but it hasn't worked. So I don't know.
See, I'd almost be tempted to just go like ultra attacking for the first 10 minutes. First 10, 15 minutes, just go, right, guys, if we concede a goal, you're never getting it back. So why don't you just go for it and try and score an early goal, catch them on the hop, proper just attack them, and then have something to defend. Because once we got into the lead against Notts County, again, is an outlying performance, but once we took the lead, we managed to get it back 4 times. So it's 3 times. It's got to be something different. I don't know. But we're going to ask your prediction now in a second. The prediction league there's 8 games left, obviously. Chalmers is making moves. He's closed the gap to just 15 points, which sounds loads, but there's 48 to play for. Andy and Paul both went with a 3-1 loss to Sutton, so boo to them. And there's no change at the top, so Andy stays 1 point ahead. My exact words here is talk about joining the prediction league, blah, blah, blah. So, blah, 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 guys, join the prediction league. The code is on the screen. But Andy, what is your thoughts? Are you expecting nothing and hoping for something?
Right. I normally don't do predictions because predictions, each match is different. Anything can happen, blah, 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 blah. But we've been so predictable in how things have been. I'm going to predict a 1-0 defeat.
Okay.
Away from home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only happened 3 times in the last month, so out of 4.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
actually, 4 times. 4 times out of 6.
Played however many.
Yeah. Since the 10th of Feb, our 6 away games, 4 of them have been 1-0 defeats.
Right. So, from a point of view, I've not got one right all season. Let's try and see if you can work out why I haven't got one right all season. When I say I'm going to go for a 2-0 win.
Keeping a clean sheet.
Deluded.
It's the road to madness, Mike.
There's hope. There's always hope. It's what kills me. Right. We're going to wrap up. Andy, first of all, thank you very much for joining, and thank you very, very much for sitting tight while my computer decided to do an update when I went to make a
no
cup of tea.
problem at all. Can I just shout out to anyone who's thinking about getting the coach to Forest Green?
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever tried to get to Forest Green by public transport, trust me, the coach is the way to go.
Right. Yeah. So that is true. It's a pig, isn't it? I just remember people moaning. I haven't done it, obviously.
The capacity of Forest Green's ground is bigger than the village, the population of the village it's in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Excellent. We got about 250,000. We'd have to have a very big stadium to catch up with that. But yeah, okay. Well, there's another plug for the coach. Andy says book the coach unless you're driving. But as always, we appreciate your attention. I haven't drunk out of it because we waited so long to get it started because of my bloody updates. But there's the attention. Everyone knows Joe is rolling his eyes right now. Follow, like, share Sutton Podcast at Sutton Podcast on all social medias. Subscribe and give us those thumbs up on YouTube because I do enjoy it. Until next time, thank you always to Lucky Star Gin, our sponsors. Big thank you again to Andy. Thanks for the listeners. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of Sutton Podcast. Next up, we are on Sunday, and it is Jenny and Will Lawless said he's doing it. Not entirely sure. We'll realise it's an away game, so that might change. But apparently Will's doing it. He might be doing the commentary as well, though, so he may well be doing it. But thank you very much, and we'll catch up soon. Take care. Goodbye. United! 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 United!